welcome back to Frank's Model Aviation Workshop. Well, we have finally arrived at the Ultimate Build series, pardon the pun. I'm going to be building a Carl Goldberg Ultimate 10-300 biplane. I've built many of these kits, and all the ones I've built in the past were the single servo in the wing, high torque servo of course. I put the single servo in the tail for the elevator, and I ran Enya 120 R120 GP in the front. So I'm going to go with the Enya. I'm going to figure out what I want to do with the tail yet. I don't know whether I want to do 2 elevator servos. I might do that. And I'm thinking about doing dual aileron servos. Haven't decided that yet. I've never had an issue with a single high torque servo. It works just as fine as a 2 servo deal, but I don't know, we'll see when I get there. But I took my plans up to like a Kinko's or a Staples, and I had them copied off, so I have a sacrificial plan that I can cut up, but I still have the original blue line Carl Goldberg plans that I will keep in pristine shape, you know, for the aficionados out there that freak out when they see somebody cut a plan up. But it's no big deal. It's the exact same size as these plans I've measured, and it matches up perfectly. And my book was missing the template page for the interplane strut holes, so I have an extra book that I copied off. So we're going to get this build going. Might be a long series. I'm not sure how detailed I want to go into it. I'm sure people want to see every last detail close up, and that's probably, you know, the way I'll do it. And they'll be, you know, boring as usual. And but in the end, it's going to be a nice looking plane. So we'll get this series going and get a maiden out of this thing eventually. So if you like this type of content, please consider subscribing to my channel. Hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified of future episodes, and also like and share my videos. I really appreciate that. So let's get going. Get this thing done and in the air. Okay, I've sorted through the box and I've got all the parts laid out to complete the entire tail section: elevator, stabilizer, vertical fin, and rudder. And I got wax paper laid out on the first part, which is going to be the horizontal stabilizer. We'll start there, and as we go, I'll share with you tips that I changed from the plans and from the instructions, because you get a better result if you do it the way I'm doing it, as far as smoothness of the balsa sheeting and stuff. They like to, or they have in the plans, to glue a sheet on the frame and then to glue the next sheet next to it. I like to pre-glue all my sheets together and then sand them, then glue them on. That way it looks really nice when you get the monocoat on it. So let's get started building this thing. First step, we're going to build this center section of the horizontal stabilizer. And I'm not sure what that word means. I think I mean platform. Platform. Okay, so we'll get going on this thing. Okay, so we'll get started by getting the platform cut out. And I think I was lucky enough to purchase a early production kit, because these balsa, it's not die crushed yet. It's still die cut. But still, some of it needs a little help. Just to clear it free of the sheet. Look how nice that is. All right. We need that. We need 3/16 sticks. And of course, you know, the T-pins and X-Acto knife and stuff. So what I want to do first, I'm going to match this up, make sure that it's square to the plan. It needs a little bit of adjustment. So I'm going to do that first before I glue it up. And I'm going to make it a little big just so that I have room to adjust. And what I'm doing here, I'm just going to mark it with a pen, and I'm going to sand it instead of I'll sand it instead of cutting it with an X-Acto. That way I can get it exactly perfect. So we'll start with that edge. These Permagrit sanding blocks, when you set them on their side, they're exactly 90 degrees from your table surface or whatever you're using. And you know, it's got a slight empty spot here, so I'm going to have to elevate the balsa a little bit. And then you just, you do your sanding, and it'll be perfectly 90 degrees. Okay, I'm happy with that. So now I'm going to mark the trailing edge side the same way. You just want to do this lightly and make sure that sanding bar stays on the table surface. What I like to do is put a stick on either end and match it up with the plan. So I've got a ways to go on that. So I'm going to keep taking it off the trailing edge. Be faster. I know a lot of guys are like, why are you taking so much time to do that? You should just slap it together. But that ain't me. I don't do it that way. This is probably going to be the last ultimate biplane I build. and I want to make sure that it's 100% perfect, or as perfect as I can get it. You can fast forward to the next step if you you get bored with it. That's fine with me. But I'm going to build just like I always have, and if it takes a while, it takes a while. I think we might have it. Okay, I'm happy with that. So that is the center platform set to go. I'm going to go ahead and pin it down as soon as I get it lined up where I want it. Yeah, and that takes an hour for me to do one step. That's all right. There's no rush. I'm not in any hurry. Alright, that's that. Now, I sort through my wood, and I want the hardest wood to the trailing edge. And the softest wood I want to keep for the inside. Okay, these are all hard. Now we gotta find the straight stuff. I think I want the straightest piece for the vertical fin, so I'm gonna get it ain't gonna matter because you're gonna pin it into a structure anyway, so okay, I'll save that one for the vertical fin. All right. So we'll use this. I'm going to go ahead and mark it. And glue it and pin it in place. marking where I want to glue it. I'm going to use medium CA. And you'll notice I'm putting this straight edge along the trailing edge here. And that's so I can keep every piece on the trailing edge straight as an arrow. So now when I put that next piece, you put the straight edge on there, and you see it pulls it straight. Okay, now we'll put that next section in. What I'm doing off camera, if it's off camera, is using a Zona saw and a miter box to cut my pieces. Marking for my glue. This front piece doesn't necessarily need to be perfectly straight, but if you're anal like I am, you try to make it straight. It's already straight anyway. There it is, step 2 in the Ultimate Biplane instruction manual. Or step 3, I'm sorry. Step 4, we're going to frame it in, get it all framed up. This right here is C grain, which is probably the best to use for straightness wise. So we'll get it cut to shape. I'm going to use something a little thicker. And I'm going to pin it to the back here. This is just to keep the trailing edge straight. That to me is the most important part. If you have a bow in this in any way, it's going to affect the way the elevators or the ailerons work. So you want to make sure that that's as straight as possible. You can always work with a curve on the leading edge. That's no big deal. So I'm going to go ahead and mark for my cut. Tight fit. Whenever possible, I like to try to use a miter gauge because my eyeballs aren't as good as they once were. And I'm going all the way out to the edge of that blue line. That's the way I want it to fit anyway. On this cut, I'm going to leave the lines so I have something to sand to. Okay, I'll make that work. we'll cut this piece. I'm going to play ahead getting that, so I'm going to do this one by hand. And it's okay to go a little bit over because you can always sand it off. I was way off on that. All right. I'm using 180 on a sanding bar to true it up. I know it seems like I'm being a little bit too finicky with this, but glue joints are everything when it comes to airframes. You want them to be as perfect as you can possibly get them. Alright, I'm going to be happy with that. Alright, see, we'll work on the perimeter. Get the perimeter done, and then we'll just do the inside sticks. I'm going to do the soft stuff on the inside. This will be an inside stick. Kind of want all of the weight of the wood, you know, the stiffness, I want it to even out. So like this piece here, I'll probably use on the tips because it's the same weight. This is pretty good. It's kind of warped, but it'll still work. Because you're gonna take the warp out when you pin it. Here's a little trick. If you want to match this angle, you know, you got to cut some off. What I do is I pin down this ruler here, got another ruler, and you take and you match up, where all you do is you line it up with this edge, and you have your balsa wood wherever you know, here's the end of it, so you don't want to waste, so just push it in there until you get it enough. Hold it up against that ruler, make sure you're lined up. Like so. And draw your line. Well, it'd be nice if you had a pen or a pencil handy. I know it's not easy, but at least your line will be, or your joint will be right. So basically there you have it. There's the line. So I'm going to cut this and we'll see how it fits. Just like so. Okay, so now we'll cut the end off. I'm going to leave that protrude over the end just a hair because I can sand that off. Maybe I'll sand it just a little. Yeah, maybe I'll sand it. My OCD is getting the best of me. Okay, that's good. So we'll put a little glue. Now these end pieces, they suck in the glue, so you want to like put enough on there to where you get a good glue joint. When you place your pins, you want to make sure you're not placing them in a spot where you need to like measure for a cut. You don't want to have a pin, you know, getting in your way. So now we'll take and keep going with this. Let's see. Now you just cut that angle. So that's this angle. That matches up perfect, as you can see. So all you have to do now is get this angle. And like I do with all of them, I use a straight edge. Line it up with there, make your mark. Then when I cut it, I leave the line. That way it gives me some leeway. Test fit. You don't want it to be a tight, snug fit. You want it to fit just right. That way you're not inducing a warp in your tail. You know, I'm sanding, it seems like I'm not taking any off. but better too little than too much. I'm almost there. Okay, that'll work. So that angle we just cut here, we can flip it like that and do this side. But before I do that, I'm going to save that. We'll do this angle just the way we did before. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera. So remember, you just flip that over and you have your perfect angle here. Now all you got to do is cut this piece and you only have 1 inch of waste. I think Carl Goldberg usually gives plenty of balsa. So, and you know, you can always even make your own balsa if you have extra laying around. You can make your sticks if you run short. I'm just lining that up. Make this cut and then sand on it about 500 times to get it right. You don't want to force it. You just want it to set in there nicely. Okay, now the rest of it is just filling in. I'm going to use the soft balsa stick. Well, actually, I'm going to use this stiff diagonal for the diagonal and then soft for the two. You can do however you want to do it. It's no big deal. That's just something I do. Trying to keep the weight distribution on each half the same, so it's less weight you have to balance laterally. All right, so right there is the completed completed stabilizer frame up. This is all the waste that I have, and this much extra to use on the fin, which I won't need, but Carl Goldberg gives plenty. Now what I'll do before I sheet this, because that's the next thing, I'm going to give this, after this is cured a little bit and the glue's dry, I'll unpin it, use my sanding bar, you know, a bigger one, you know, 11-inch, and just go over the entire surface, both sides, lightly, just to kind of flatten it out before and I'll also go along this perimeter and make sure that it matches the plan exactly. And then we will glue up the sheets and glue the sheeting on. And we'll get into that later on in this video. Okay, now that we got the stabilizer framed up, I'm going to sort through the wood, the sheeting. We'll unpin the stabilizer, give it a light sanding on both sides, and I want to go ahead and sand the perimeter to make sure that the frame matches the plan exactly. That way when we sheet, we can cut to the edge and we'll know we're really close. That way it'll have less sanding later. And when you choose your wood, you want to edge it, put it edge to edge, and you want it to be the same thickness on whatever edge you're going to use. That way you don't have a ridge when you're sanding, and it'll look nicer when it's monocoated. So I'll get set up. We'll choose the wood and get it seamed up, and I'll demonstrate how to do that. I've demonstrated it in my P40 build, but I'll do it again on this one just to refresh for people that haven't seen the P40 build. So anyway, let's get set up and we'll sheet this stabilizer. Okay, I sorted through the wood, and this is the worst wood that I have. I'm going to use this for the bottom of the stab, and it's got some bad areas. But first thing you want to do, the other sides looks okay, good enough. But the first thing you want to do, I tick marked where I wanted to join, so that's all the one side, and you know you can even write on it bottom, inside, something like that. But we're going to true up the edges, and what I do is I lay this along the edge as close as I can get it to the edge, and I'm probably going to take off a 30-second. So we'll do that first. And I take a couple passes with the knife just to kind of like let the knife do the cutting instead of the grain of the wood grabbing your knife and you get a crooked cut. Just let the knife do the work. So that's all that's taken off of that. Now we'll turn this around and do that edge. Set that aside for now. Same way, just set it along the edge and just lightly use the knife until you cut through. Okay, now, right now, these two edges are perfectly straight. So, if I put them back together, there should be no gap, which there's no gap. However, that cut can't necessarily be perfect. So, we have to true that up. And the way I do that is with my perma-grit bar. So, I'll take my wood, see if we can see it, yeah, and you're just going to hold it along the edge of something that's raised up, and you're just going to lightly sand that edge and the other edge. Now, those two edges should be perfect. And there is absolutely zero gap. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this cutting mat and we're going to set up to seam these together. Okay, so I got my wax paper down, and the way I like to do it is I like to tape them together so the seam is as tight as I can get it, because you're not necessarily going to be able to hold it perfectly tight the whole way. So I'm going to come in a couple inches, and I fold the edge of the tape over like that so that I can grab it and take it off as I come by. I'll put like 3 pieces down. Kind of like that. So you got a nice seam, and what I like to do to keep CA off of my fingers is I'll put masking tape on my fingers, on my fingertip that I'm using to do the spreading of the thin CA. Not like that. So I'll show you. We'll start down here, and as you do this, you want to make sure you push down on that seam there so that those two surfaces are flat to the table, because that's going to be your finished side. So it doesn't matter if there's a slight ridge, but because if it's the inside, you're going to sand most of it off. But you want that surface that's facing the table to be flat. So as you're gluing, you want to make sure you're pressing down before you put any glue on. That way you can tell that you're going to have a nice seamed edge. Now I can lift that one. Now as I'm going to be pressing down and holding it together with my fingertips. Now I can lift this one. I'll go ahead and lift this now. And that's all there is to that. Now you want to take your sanding bar and just lightly sand this. You don't want to sand just that seam, you want to sand the whole sheet. Because all you're really doing on the inside is just making sure it's smooth. It doesn't have to be perfectly flat. Because there's a lot of divots there. So now we'll take it off the wax paper. This is your finished side. So you want to make sure you sand it nice. Don't be too aggressive with the sanding bar, just enough to smooth it out. And that surface there is perfectly flat. So that'll be the bottom of this. So we'll glue, we'll glue that on. Just like that. Now we'll go ahead and seam up the top two pieces. I'll do that off camera since I just demonstrated the procedure. Alright, there's my top done. And the bottom inside. You can see how that's crappy looking. But we'll go ahead, I'll set up, we'll glue these on, trim them up. And we'll see if we're going to continue. I want to try to keep these videos, less than 4 hours. So we'll get set up and glue these skins on, trim them up, sand them to the edge. I'm not going to round anything yet until after we get the elevators built. Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and glue them on this flat granite here. And I'm going to use these sanding bars to press down on it to get a nice even flat stabilizer. So I'm going to glue the structure from this side and set it on there. Got to be careful because it's just exactly the right length. So we'll get it on there, get it pressed on, then we'll trim that side, and then we will glue the other skin on. I'm using medium CA to glue it on. We can tell the CA is fresh. It's burning the crap out of my eyes right now. Glue coming up through the holes. Okay. Boy, it's sucking down to the table. It's pretty flat. You're not going to get any flatter than that. Okay. Now before we glue the other side on, I'm going to trim these edges off. Should save some of that scrap just in case I need it later. These edges don't have to be perfect right now. I just want to get them trimmed up before that glue hardens too much. Alright, now we'll glue the other side. That's the underside. And this will be the top. So I'm going to put a B on the bottom right in the center here. So I know that that's the bottom. I don't want to write anything on the top. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that last clip. The battery died in my mic as I was explaining what I was doing. Basically, I was just trimming up these edges to match the plan, and I was bringing it over here to match it up to the elevator so that when I go to do my gap, it'll be a straight gap and not, like narrow here, wide there, or vice versa. So this horizontal stabilizer is complete, top and bottom. And there we have it, the finished horizontal stabilizer, top and bottom sheeted. Next video we will continue with the tail, with building the elevators, and might go on to the fin section depending on how long it is. I want to keep my videos to about an hour, hour and a half. There'll be a lot more of them, but I want to try to include as much as I can of the build. I don't want to miss, I don't want anybody to miss anything. I know the veteran builders out there are probably like, I could have done that in 5 minutes or something like that, but I don't build that way. I take my time and make sure everything is as perfect as I can get it. And if it takes me a while, it takes me a while, but you can always skip videos, fast forward, whatever. But we're going to call this a video, and I'll get this uploaded. And I want to try to have a video up every Friday at midnight. So we'll work on that. We'll get this thing done little by little. It'll eventually be done. But as soon as I'm done with this video, I'm going to continue on with the build and with the next video. So just be looking for a video a week for this build, and that's what's going to happen. So anyway, if you like this type of content, please consider subscribing to my channel. Hit that notification bell so that you can be notified of future episodes, and be sure and like and share my videos. I'd really appreciate it. And until the next video, thanks for watching.